Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the succession planning and the exit strategy plan session. My name is Naomi. I'm from ICIC, and today this is the think tank session. And we have Melanie Ray that will be presenting and leading this session today. And I'll let Melanie introduce herself. But first, would everybody be able to mute themselves? And if you have any questions, just put it in the chat and one of us will be answering it, or I will be letting Melanie know. All right, Melanie.
All right. Thank you all, my fellow ICIC people. I am an alum as well. I joined in 2018, and the program has just been fabulous for me. One of the biggest benefits I got out of it is having a mentor, and I think it's so important for people to come together, business owners to come together like this and share with one another. So today we are going to talk about succession planning and exit strategy. Before we do that, I just wanted to briefly introduce myself and why I was invited to be a moderator for this particular session. I am Melanie Ray, the founder of Guided Business Plan. I started this company in 2009. And I just wanted to simplify business planning and strategies overall. So over the course of the past 10 years or so, I have developed a series of books to help people starting out, to scaling, to going after government and corporate contracts. I have authored 10 editions, I've trained more than 1,500 classes, and I've been an advisor for several years. And so I wanted to take this time to ask you questions and to facilitate these small group discussions so that way we can hear what others are doing in terms of strategies around succession planning and the exit strategy. One of the other things that I worked on related to succession planning was a book that I collaborated with Irving Katz on called Family Business Secrets. That was all about multi-generational businesses and how do you start the planning process. So with that book, the business continuity book I did, and the pandemic recovery book, I'm hoping that I can answer some of your questions, but also have you guys collaborate with one another as well. So in today's think tank, we know the topic, succession planning, exit strategy, but I feel like it means so much more now. It's different. So my slant on this is succession amidst calamity. There's so many crazy things that are going on right now that we're dealing with as business owners. So I want to keep that in our point of view. The second thing I wanted to do was talk about envisioned or forced exit strategy. Okay, so because of the times, it's changing what our exit strategy is going to be. So we actually are representing this topic for the whole conference. So what I'd like to do is ask for 2 people to volunteer to record notes and then to come back on December 8th at 2:15 to talk about what it is that we discussed today. So we're looking for 2 volunteers who are willing to record some notes from today's session. And we're going to have our running chat as well. Again, we're going to ask people to put it in the chat so we can have that. So we would like you to report back on the top 3 common challenges, solutions and resources, and outstanding questions and issues. So I can't see everyone's screen. I see a couple of you. I see St. Louis. But if you could, can you put that in the chat right now, or a private message, Naomi, if you would like to be the reporter to represent us on December 8th. And Naomi, please let me know if you have 2 volunteers. Do you have them? Okay.
I see Bernadette.
And Bernadette. All right, thank you all. That was good. Great. Appreciate that. All right, so exit strategy. I was having a discussion with somebody, and we were talking about how when a 20-something-year-old enters professional sports, a lot of times they're making more money than a lot of small businesses do over several years. At that moment, they most likely are not thinking about their retirement plans, the athlete. However, when small businesses start and they create that business plan, that exit strategy is towards the end of the executive summary, first 2 pages. So we have to think about what our open and close is going to look like at the same time. So I don't know about you, but there are several different things you may have considered, such as growth through acquisition and mergers. Maybe you wanted to create a multi-generational business. Maybe you wanted to sell the business after a certain amount of years or offer employee stock plan. You know, the reasons why we have these our exit strategies are different. But now it might be more of a forced exit strategy because of what's going on. People are shuttering their businesses left and right. Those, you know, boards are going up over the window panes. And so you might have a forced exit strategy at this moment. Or you could be living the dream. You might want to sell your business and you might be hitting the target. So we want to hear from you. Within these small groups, I'd like you to talk about how the events of 2020 have forced businesses to either sell prematurely or to acquire struggling businesses. So I'd like you to discuss what your options are. So again, this whole thing is a think tank. Two things we're going to talk about: exit strategy, what are your options? And the second one is succession planning. So for those of you who may not be aware of what succession planning is, to me, it's really about the owner taking a small role or no role at all in their business. So how are they going to leave it in the hands of somebody else? And before, what they would do is often have a chance to create, identify a mentor and then really get them familiar with what's going on. They might create a family legacy and have years or months to build that up. Or they might sell the company, but really take their time. With all the events that are going on now, those things are changing. We no longer have, a lot of businesses don't have that option. So succession planning before was more about the executive team, getting them groomed. Now, because of COVID and all the other things that have come up this year, succession planning must include executive teams, key roles, people who have key roles in the business, and the staff as well. Because we just, you know, there's so many things that could happen. So I'd like to take a moment to find out what's going on in your world in terms of your succession planning. What does your current succession plan include? Do you include the leadership hierarchy? Is there a chain of command of what would happen if one of those people, one or more of those people, were no longer available to do it? Do you have redundancy plans? Do you have documents to show a potential buyer so that way it's already done and you're ready to sell? Do you have documents to acquire capital? And maybe you don't have a succession plan at all. So Naomi, could you please put up the poll and get a chance? So go ahead and please select this when it comes up.
The polls, somebody else logged in onto it. So if they can write it in the Zoom chat.
Okay. So we had our poll, and then, like I said, we probably have had these Zoom issues at one point during the course of this year. So if you could, please put in your answer in the chat. So I'll just say them again. What does your current succession plan include? Is it leadership hierarchy, redundancy plans? And again, you don't have to put the whole thing in, just say leadership or redundancy, or documents to show a potential buyer, or documents to acquire capital, because you might be in a position to buy other businesses. I've met a few businesses earlier this year who were doing that. So leadership, okay? That's good. It's so important now to have some kind of leadership chain of command that's in place, because there are COVID concerns that now need to be taken into consideration. And this was a survey that went out where it showed that most people here were concerned about the financial impact of COVID, the potential for global recession, and the effects of workforce reduction. So that's speeding up succession plans. So no longer do we have those months to years. Sometimes you need to think about this today or next week in terms of what happens if your executive team is exposed to an outbreak, or what happens if several of your executive members or key role players, they are now caregivers and they're no longer able to serve in the same capacity. Okay, so it's so important to create those succession plans. And how do you do it? So again, that's what we're going to talk about in these small groups today. So this is the challenge that we have, and Naomi's going to put this in the chat for you as well. How are you preparing your business to survive economic slowdowns, financial losses, and uncertain productivity? What challenges are you facing? So within these small groups, again, we're just going to come back together as a bigger group, but within these small groups, I'd like for you to identify a timer. We're going to have groups of 5 people. So just to say somebody who's going to monitor the time, it's going to be 15 minutes, and we'd like everyone to have, an equal amount of time. If you want to have everyone introduce themselves first and then open up the discussion, that's fine. Just however you want to do it. But I'd love for people to share their name, their company, their location, and then to respond to these questions. Okay, again, so I'm just putting this up here again. How are you preparing, and how have the effects of 2020 impacted your exit strategy? Some other things to think about is documented processes, whether or not you have a backup plan, cross-training, or more. So go ahead and hit join when you see that invitation. Thank you. And we are going to have some people in the main waiting room. So same thing, we're gonna have a timer. We'll see who ends up in the main room. I'm going to jump in and out so I can hear what people are sharing as well.
Okay. Melanie, I'll be moving you. Okay.
So how many people do we have in the main room?
We have 16 people.
Okay. And are they all call-ins?
Sorry?
Are they all calling in?
Yeah.
No faces? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oops,
so before I leave, I'll ask. So for those of you who are calling in, you're currently on mute right now. So I think we're gonna have to unmute everyone so they could share. So I think I may have to stay here. I'm just gonna hit later for right now.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who are calling in, we wanna see who is actually here calling in to see whether or not we're going to have a discussion in the main room.
You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, please unmute yourself. We have quite a few of you here in the main room, which again, we can form our own breakout room here for those of you who are calling in, and we just open up the phones.
Mm-hmm. Melanie, do you want to check out the other breakout rooms?
Sure.
Okay. Here, I just sent it to you.
Stop share. Can you send me out again?
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Were you able to receive it?
Okay.
So I see Joyce, Georgie, Lee, Lourdes. Would you guys be able to unmute yourself? Jay.
Okay, I can unmute myself. The problem is I'm taking another call. Small business problems. I'm trying to do two things at the same time. So I'm trying to finish that other call before I can get on it. I am so sorry.
No, of course, that makes sense.
So I'm trying to listen in as best I can while I'm listening to this other client's call.
Of course, no, that makes sense. Don't worry.
Okay, thanks.
I understand. Anybody else, would they be able to unmute themselves?
I'm unmuted. Yes, I'm unmuted.
Okay, great. Yeah.
I got bumped out of the meeting, so I guess I'm in the right.
Oh.
In the right room.
Yeah. Well, sorry about that. Yeah. So yeah, as Melanie was mentioning, as Carmen, are you unmuted as well?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so this is kind of the breakout session where you can talk about the challenges that you've been experiencing, like Melanie was mentioning. And
Sure.
yeah.
I've used this opportunity. I've been working remotely since, I guess, February or March. So it is an opportunity to really extricate myself from the business and turn day-to-day operations over to others. So I'm trying to function more as an owner, a CEO, rather than the key person in the company. So that I'm in the process of trying to create my own exit plan, because I'm almost 70 years old. So that time in my life, and I've worked to get to this. The question is, you've got to, the people that are operating have to have skin in the game. And so I've got to make that transition from being the owner to being an owner, and, create a stock option plan, or, some other form of ownership for the company. My goal would be to maintain income in my retirement, but it's got to be worth employees' while to invest in the company and build the company. And I don't have that formula worked out yet. That's why I'm in this session. Makes
sense. Yeah. That's definitely, I feel like, something that everybody's been struggling with as well, hearing from other stories. And do you have any plans so far, or in terms of the economy? I know as everybody's been kind of keeping an eye on it.
Well, the economy for us, we sell pre-owned office furniture, and we do planning and design, and businesses are in a period of transition. I mean, office space is changing with the pandemic. I mean, we're going from very small, condensed environments to much more, space for people and privacy. So there's a lot of shifting going on, even though a lot of people are working remotely. Home office is a big deal. So there's a lot of planning going on around offices right now. And so our business is still there. We're not like a restaurant or a bar like that. I mean, business is continuing, and there's demand for our products and services.
Yeah, that's great. I see. And Carmen, how have you been able to adapt to the challenges?
Right now, we're pretty good. I am temporary staffing, and hiring. The difficulties that we're finding is really right now. Before, we had a boatload of people to choose from, but right now it's not. And we have people who are afraid to leave, to go into offices to work. And we find difficulties of those who are not accustomed to working from home. They are not fitting very well working the hours from home. And we're trying to balance that, because we have clients that will say, okay, but once the productivity is going down, we want them to go back into the office. A lot of them don't want to for fear.
I see, which makes sense. And do you have any backup plans in terms of, let's say, 2021? Any pivots that you think you might need to make?
Well, one option we have done for a few of our clients, we've allowed our employees who are working from home, who really cannot adapt to working from home, to come into our office. But it's on limited basis, because we ourselves now, with everything online, the applications are filled online. We do Zoom interviews or GoToMeeting interviews to get the feel of the individual that we want to place on the assignment. And once there, we try to work with our client, because we have small office space, that primarily we don't want a lot of people in. So we have allowed one or two to come in occasionally to work from home, from home instead of there to our office. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it does not.
Excellent. Melanie, I'm about to move you. Oh, yeah. Hi. Jadadev, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how about you? How are you able to deal with the challenges or anything that Carmen or Bill said?
Pretty much is like working from home. The whole staff is working from home remotely. So we are also a staffing company. So pretty much everything is, we do have some challenges, but on the whole, I mean, I think we are doing okay. It's not what we would like to, but at least we are doing fine. And, that's a little slow business, but we are hanging in there.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah. And did you guys have any backup plans? I know I asked Carmen this.
Backup plans is like, yes, I have a family member who I'm kind of training, person up to speed and letting them know. So, I mean, it is, but again, it's not very sure about it. We have to wait and see.
Okay.
Yeah, my backup plan would be to keep working, which I don't want to. Or, I mean, really could, sell the business, try to sell it, I mean, there's different options. I think for me, as far as a, long-term plan, I mean, I've worked to build this thing and it's a good business, and just, I'd like to keep it, going. I mean, that would be, I think, the best thing, keep building it and growing it and just not have to be the rainmaker, and have that. And the next generation can, create their own retirement and wealth and so forth. So you just got to be structured properly to incent people. You got to have compensation and is built into the formula so it works. If it's not set up correctly, it won't work right. And I think I'm a little bit at that point right now, that it's not the system isn't really tight, as tight as it needs to be.
Right. And do you feel like that initial fear is still there of the unknown, or do you feel like you have some sort of like, at least?
Definitely, yeah. There's definitely issues of stress and unknown. Yeah, but Apple Computer was able to grow the business the way it did because early on they put the formulas together correctly, and if it wasn't quite right, they were able to pivot and adjust it. And with stock options for people and the comp program and all, and the investment capital. They had that business plan aligned correctly so it could continue to grow. And they made the adjustments. In small business, we have to do the same thing. I mean, we've got, in a lot of times, we don't have the resources. And
Sorry.
Yeah, we just don't have the resources to put it together that tight. So that's why I'm here, looking for that kind of mentorship,
right,
and knowledge base, and working with people that have done that and know how to do that.
That makes sense. Yeah, definitely.
So you're going to help me with that?
We're trying. That's why we're all here, right?
Right. That's
all right. So in a minute, in 2 minutes, everybody will be joining back in the main room.
Okay.
I see more people creeping back in.
I have a question with us in the pandemic. One of the other problems I wanted to ask Jaydeep, since he's in staffing as well, about their recruiting. Are they finding it difficult to recruit? Because at one point, with the contracts that we are still bidding on contracts, and we have won several with that. But the problem that we're finding sometimes is to recruit that correct individual that's willing to go.
Okay, I can respond to that. Is like, I mean, on the recruiting side, some of the challenges what we are facing is a lot of people the clients want the individuals to be on site, and the candidates don't want to go on site. They all want to work remotely, which is makes sense from both sides. So I mean, that's where we are finding the challenges, finding the resources, but the clients are not willing to let them work remotely.
Melanie, you're on mute.
Hi, we're going to be joining you guys who are in the lobby. People are going to be coming back in shortly. And so I just want to take the next 10 minutes to focus on one person, one, maybe two, who really wants the advice. Because what I'm hearing is that there needs to be another class, which is specifically on how to with succession planning and all the different things that come with it. This was more of a chance to share, and almost, I guess it's like a focus group to find out what we need to cover. But there are so many great minds on this call and people who have experiences. So is there one person that would like to kind of put out there what their challenges are and get feedback? And for those of you who are just coming in, again, I'm putting out there to say we're going to spend 10 minutes just to ask or be able to support one member to find out what their challenges are and provide feedback to that person. So is there anyone who would like to volunteer to come off mic?
You're saying for what I feel for succession.
Oh, Bernard. Okay, I was in your group. So Bernard, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to mention, the challenge,
Bernard, okay.
The challenge that we had raised in our group. One of the challenges that I had amongst the others was we were at a point where we're talking about succession planning and how to transition things, but having those conversations with a family-owned business. It's a third-generation business, and my granddad is still the majority owner of the company. And so sometimes it's really tough to have those, conversations. We know we need to have it. I mean, he has it in his mind how he wants succession planning to go, but it's not documented. So just trying to navigate through the process of how do we have those tough conversations with the family to get something on paper.
So has anyone gone through this where they have a family-owned business and they had to make the transition to somebody who's who's a little reluctant to do so?
Yeah, I definitely do.
Okay, Sandy, go ahead. Do you have any advice for Bernard?
Yeah, I mean, so in our case, my parents chose not to have any kind of succession plan. It was my brother and I that are supposed to take over the business, and they just decided that a shared leadership model of co-partners or co-presidents was the way to go. And in that scenario, it ended up just, it is going to end up terribly, and has deteriorated drastically in the past couple of months, and to the point where my parents are actually no longer speaking to me, and it's through no fault of my own. All of our advisors, our CPA, everyone told them not to go with my brother, not to go with his ideas, and my parents went with his ideas anyway. And so the best advice I can give you is please come up with a plan. And even though those conversations are going to be very uncomfortable right now, it's far better to have that out in the open. If people are concerned about money or power or position or whatever it is, get that out in the open now, because unfortunately, because my parents were reluctant or afraid or just didn't want to have the uncomfortable conversation, now it has ended up destroying our family, and it's just the saddest thing. I hope I don't come off as sounding callous or anything. I'm now finally to the point where I can talk about this without bursting into tears. This has been the most difficult time in my life. So Bernard, the best advice I can give you is please plan. Find a coach who can work with you and your family, and honestly, because at the end of the day, the business doesn't matter, your family does.
Mm-hmm.
So
thank you, Sandy. Thank you for sharing.
I lied about the crying.
One, there's a couple of things. It's a really strong message to everyone, is to say, let's work on succession plan, whatever that level is. But also you say work with an advisor. And as part of the alumni network, we have access to PCV, which I think is Pacific Community Ventures. They provide free mentoring to ICIC alumni. So you want to follow up with that to find out. And Naomi may have some more information. If not, definitely Anne Marie Cruz. Sign up with a mentor specifically for succession. It's free to you. And that way you get someone to answer questions as it relates to your particular situation, and then not just joining a class. So thank you so much, Sandy, for sharing that.
Melanie, what's the name of that company? Pacific? What?
It's through ICIC.
Yeah.
South Pacific. It's PCV.
Go ahead, Naomi.
PCV.
Do you have a link, Naomi, or who they should call?
Put it in the chat too.
Sorry, I can get the link and put it in the chat.
Okay, good. Thank you. We've got 4 more minutes before we go into our next breakout. Is there anyone else that would like to provide advice to Bernard? And I'm going to say like 4 different times each time. Any more advice to him regarding the family-owned business?
Yeah, I got advice. Go ahead, Lori.
Hi. So I'm a family-owned, it's second generation for us as well. And it's my brother and I get it totally with our parents not wanting to relinquish the leadership, stay in control, get most of the money. But the advice that Sandy gave in terms of having a coach, which is what we got, who helps to legalize it and advise in the same way on which way to go. So, and then whoever takes over the company in terms of your family, it would be best for whoever's strengths are the bookkeeping or accounting, and who's ever better with operations and structure to do that, have the real meeting with each other and say, look, you have to trust that what I'm doing or the decision that I make is for the best interest of the business, and let that person handle that. So I handle that aspect of our business in terms of accounting and bookkeeping and all of the financials, taxes, the biggest headache that I would think, but then operations and employees, my brother handles, and that's heavy as well. So having a structure, just because it's family, it's better to have operate with an organizational structure as well, and run it like it's not a family business, but just a business. And that's what will get you to where you need to go with keeping the legacy alive.
That's one of the things that came up in the discussions that I was in, was documenting the process. If you document it, it might feel more like a larger corporation to that person who's hesitant, and also puts out there on paper all that you have accomplished together as a company. Okay, Rob, you had something you wanted to share?
Yeah, so Bernard, I might have missed this, but you said you're the 3rd generation in the family business?
Yeah, I'm 3rd generation member.
And how many other people are in the business from the family?
So from the family, it's just me and my uncle and my granddad. So just 3 members.
Okay, and is there anyone else in your generation who is a possible successor?
No.
Okay, and what was the stated problem? That's where I came in. Was it that someone's reluctant to take it on?
No, it's really just having the conversation,
of the older generations.
Yeah, my granddad's already, owner, of me. And it's, conversations that we've been trying to have for years, and he has in his mind, what has to happen. It's been communicated to the family, but it's nothing that's really documented, on paper. And, my granddad, he's getting up in age. He's 92, so we just have to look at reality as well. And, just having those tough conversations.
Got it. By the way, I apologize for not being on video. I just can't get the video to work. I'm gonna have to reboot the computer between sessions. But Bernard, first of all, what Sandy said is a real risk, right? That the old generation hangs on so long that you, I think, end up feeling left out in the cold, or like you're hanging on a long time. And so there's a risk of family breakdown there. So I think part of the story is about founder syndrome, where the founder has a hard time letting go and bowing out, but also doesn't want to be put out to pasture, doesn't want to admit to his own mortality, is afraid he's getting shut out or cut out. still always liked feeling in control, doesn't want to feel out of control. I mean, you name it, it just goes on. And I think this is about legacy and love. And I think, and it's about, part of it I think is about calling the bluff of the founder. I'm a second generation, calling the bluff of the founder and your uncle in terms of this isn't about control. It's really about, they need to have confidence that it's going to be in good hands. So I think knowing what's important to them, for them to feel comfortable to let go, and then getting agreement on a schedule for letting go pieces, so that you take on pieces gradually, and they have the confidence of seeing that you take it on gradually and you prove yourself gradually. And gradual doesn't have to mean years and years, but I think that knowing what matters to them, to have them feel confident in letting go. Confidence in letting go is not just trust or love. It's also seeing that you can do it, and trust, and taking a small leaps of faith that you prove were worth doing.
Okay. Rob, that was a great segue.
Yeah, hi. My name is Craig. I'm an agent, and I have a quick question on premium payments.
Okay. Hold off on that, Craig.
Curious, are the premium payments due in full? Or can we do installments?
Craig, I'm not sure if you're talking to us, but if you could.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
Okay, so I think if everyone could mute their line, please. We're about to go into another breakout session. And so Rob was talking about solutions and, legacy and love. That was something that really stood out to me in terms of turning it over in pieces, in the sense of proving that you're able to manage certain pieces. So that way, that person who feels like, they don't want to lose control has that confidence level. So when we go into these next breakout groups, I'd love for you to continue talking about different solutions in terms of your succession plan, especially as it goes on right now with all the calamity going on around us. What are your best practices for succession planning? What has your team responded to? So if you're in the process of documenting this and asking your team for their feedback in terms of how things should be done, how have they responded to that? And then what concerns do you have about your company's trajectory? Okay. Where are you guys going in the future? What concerns do you have right now in terms of, are you able to even make it there? So we're gonna do our breakouts again, 15 minutes. So talk about what are your best practices in the next 6 to 12 months. And again, what has your team responded to? And then what concerns remain regarding your business trajectory? And you might wanna talk about operations, documenting that. I just brought that up. And then also emerging leadership. So there might be people who are at that level now that you want to groom, and there are really structured programs around emerging leadership because of the people who are retiring as well. And then stability. So what are some of your best practices to bring stability when there's so much uncertainty going around? Okay. So we're going to break into our groups for 15 minutes and come back. And again, this is really too fast to me. I feel like there should probably be a series of succession planning and being able to talk about specific items. So again, please share in the chat whatever challenges have come up, whatever solutions. We're going to take that all back and present it to ICIC in terms of possibly creating a series around succession planning and exit strategy. Okay, so we're going to break into groups of 5 people each for 15 minutes and then come back and talk about it again.
Okay, I'm just going to send everyone into their rooms. Just make sure once you get the notification that says join room to click that button. All right.
Thank you. So as people are coming back, I'd love for you guys to put in some of the solutions that you heard about in your groups. If you could put that in the chat, and just whatever outstanding questions or issues you might have, if you could put that in the chat as well. So I'll repeat that as people are coming in. If you have any notes from today's session, could you please put that in the chat, whether there are challenges, the solutions, or if there are outstanding questions. And then that way we can just see what's going on in the different chat rooms. And then also to compile a list so that way we can make a request for an actual more structured succession planning, either series or a single workshop. All right, so would anyone like to share what they have in our last 10 minutes together? Is there anyone that a really good solution, either that you heard or that you presented yourself, that you'd like to share with the group? not, I'll look at my notes from the groups that I listened in on. So would anyone like to come off mic and share what they have in addition to putting stuff into the chat? Okay, one of the people was mentioning how her business is set up regarding around the family's skill sets. So if someone's really good at accounting, that's what they do. If they're good at working with customers, that's what they do. So that just stood out to me because it made me wonder about what happens if that person is no longer available. If they have to quarantine themselves for a couple of weeks, are people being cross-trained? So again, succession typically, I think before 2020 was all about grooming that next generation to run the company. Whereas now it's really about the fact that somebody might not be available tomorrow to provide the same level of productivity. So what can you do to hedge against that? And so it's partly maybe documenting processes, and this is just a tip, is maybe asking everybody to document what it is that they do. So that way you have that structure and you have it like a quick reference guide so someone could step in. Another thing could be in terms of the discussion. So it doesn't feel like it's just coming from the top to the bottom, having more group discussions in terms of overall strategy, but as it relates to COVID and things that could complicate things as well. I know one business owner, she has tea times once a week where it's just informal time to get together because people are missing that water cooler or passing in the hall feel. So would anyone like to share anything? Yeah, succession planning, an ongoing process. Hire consultants, start early. Now, Kristen, how early is early? Because we have a couple businesses that are here and they're really they're investing time in making the business grow more so than the succession part. So
I'm going through a succession planning process right now. We did hire a consultant, and that's, so far it's going well. We're in the middle of it, but all the things that you've talked about are things that we don't really necessarily have in place. We're trying to put in place, the leadership hierarchy, key staff, operations, all of those things are kind of on the table right now. We're trying to make sure that, we put something together that will work, right? Because you're not, we have about 80 people and we have 3 partners right now, but it's not going to be like one day, hey, who wants to buy shares, and it's going to be a free for all. So we don't want that to happen. And we want to make sure that it survives, right? So, because if, your payout's going to be over time and you want to make sure the money's there. And so those are all big concerns. And like I said, right now we have a consultant that specializes, I'm an architect, I'm in the architectural engineering community, and we're in the middle of it. So it's hard to say whether it's going well or not. We're not, we're not finished yet, but I'm thinking for me, 10 years. So I think you need that kind of timing in order to, it's going to take a year or so to implement a plan. And then, you need a long time for it to happen. So
what prompted you to bring on that consultant right now?
Well, because the firm was founded in the 70s by a woman architect. And so there were some partners. I took over the majority owner in like 2014. That process did not go well. Okay, that first transition did not go well. So knowing that, it's like in the last year, it's like, hey, what are we going to do for the next group? We can't just, it can't be the way it was before. So that's why we hired the consultant. Just having that experience, and the other partner was like, yeah, we can't do it the same way. So, that's kind of how that happened.
Okay. And Kathy asked, is it worth it? It sounds like it is. Is the consultant worth it?
I think so. I mean, like I said, we're in the middle of it. We got our first draft kind of report, but it makes you think about a lot of things, right? That you don't have in place, right? We don't really have a good leadership plan in place. I mean, there's a lot of people, you're saying, hey, these are good people, but have we really even talked to them yet? You might be surprised about what people are thinking. Say, hey, so-and-so and so-and-so, but they'll probably buy my shares. And they may have no interest at all, right? So just those having those conversations, we're just starting to have. And what are the ages of those people, right? So hopefully people in their 40s that you hope to keep them around. And how do you keep them around? How do you bonus? How do they buy shares? How much do they commit themselves? How much do they buy through a bonus plan? All those things are on the table right now. We're trying to, kind of come up with a good plan that will will run smoothly. And I think that's probably common in any business, right? That it's, and that's I think the difficulty is, you know, when you have, especially the first transition, because you have somebody that founded it, and that person wasn't really wanted to leave, wanted this to happen, but wasn't leaving, wasn't making it happen, you know. So we didn't know until the very day we were all coming up with plan B. Let's go start our own firm, you know, because it didn't look like she was in any position. She kept saying she wanted this to happen, but then didn't do anything to make it happen, right? So we weren't sure, you know, she was ever going to sign on the dotted line, you know. So, yeah. So that was, like I say, it was not a good plan. There was really no plan, but so we're trying to avoid that. So it's, so I think you need a consultant. I was interested, though. It'd be nice to run it by a third party, like you mentioned, the mentor, or somebody that's even outside the industry that says, hey, what do you think about this plan? Does it make sense to you? You know, so I might do that.
And one of the other questions that came up is just how do you find a consultant? So I'll just leave that for the community to post, to share in the chat, any feedback on how to find a consultant, as well as any other unanswered questions that you might have. So again, please share with us. We have about 60 seconds left. Go ahead. Go ahead, someone want to say something?
Oh yeah, I'm Connie Wax from Baltimore. I have a medical billing company, and I've worked with consultants over the years. The first consultant I worked with was about 15 years ago, and she was very, very, very helpful in implementing systems and helping me with employees. And then probably about 6 years ago, I worked with someone else, and then I took a Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses course, and I've been working with the consultant who was my business advisor there. So I think consultants are amazing if you have the right one. I think you also have to keep in mind that when you hire a consultant, you need to know where you are in your brain space, mentally, you know, emotionally, where you are in your life, because sometimes consultants need to first be a therapist and help you make the individual changes that you need to make in your life. You might be working too hard. You might not know how to delegate. You might have a family issue that you really have to take care of. And you have to be realistic that if you don't take care of the things environmentally around you first that are affecting you being able to run a business, then you won't be able to make the changes that you need to make in the business. So it's really important when you find the right consultant and to know, they need to understand where you are in your life. The second consultant that I had worked with.
Oh, Connie froze, but I guess it froze because of the timing.
Okay, whatever, but you get my point.
Yes. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you, all of you, for sharing and being here. To me, the time went by very, very quickly. A lot of good discussions. And that was the point, was just to get the discussion going and hopefully give you with a few pointers in terms of the next steps. So I definitely appreciate you for being here. And I hope to see you at different sessions over today, December 3rd, and December 8th as well. So again, if you have any comments, please put it in the chat. I'll hang out for a few more minutes, but again, I really appreciate you for coming out to this think tank. Naomi, is there anything you'd like to say?
No, just thank you, Melanie, as well.
Thank you, Naomi,
for this session. And also, just to let everybody know that you have a 15-minute break. After the session, you can log out of the Zoom, and then you can return to the main room at 2:30 Eastern time. But thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Melanie is okay.
Somebody was going to say something?
Yeah, that was me, Melanie. I was going to say, is it okay if I reach out to you just to...
Sure. I'm not seeing who that is, though.
It's Bernard.
Bernard, okay. Oh, there you are. Okay. Sure, yeah, please reach out.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Is your contact information in the...
Oh, I just put it up there, but I will put it in the chat again.
And normally when you,
okay, here it is.
If you're planning to do this and you want to budget, do you budget for like X number of hours, or do you budget, I mean, if you're on the planning side as opposed to the selling side?
in terms of the whole succession planning?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's based on hours. I don't think it can be. It's almost like a business plan too. It's more of whether or not the questions are answered. So I think the main thing is to figure out what is it that you want to accomplish and what kind of questions need to be answered. So what kind of business do you have?
In my case, it's a dental business.
Dental business, okay. And then what was your exit strategy when you started it?
We're mixed. It's family owned, so some people want to be there forever and others don't. So we're working through it right now.
So it's almost like when people are inheriting, when siblings are inheriting a house and one wants to sell and one wants to keep it, there's going to be a lot of friction going on. So I guess that's the main thing that you have to get over first, is who's going to have that 51% to be able to make that decision, that call in terms of which direction you're going to go into. And then you plan accordingly whether or not it's grooming it for the next generation. And is there current interest from the next generation, or are you going to have to bring somebody else in, or are you setting it up to sell? And in that case, you want to meet with a broker so they can tell you what kind of things you have to have in place for your business. Almost like selling a house. How does it have to appear to the potential buyer?
Thank you.
And so what is your next step? Is it McCallie?
Yeah, Mikhail, he's silent.
In terms of getting help for this, so getting specific help.
Well, one of the things I'm putting this as part of, that's why I was asking for a budget as I look at 2021 budgeting for our plan for 2021. We want to allocate some resources to this. Our plan is in the next 3 to 5 years to have some type of exit, depending on whether it's an outright sale. The doctor is passionate about dentistry, so they love it. They just don't like the other side of it, like the business side of it as much. They don't care for that. But the dentistry is, something that they really, really enjoy doing.
So there are, this is coming top of mind, of those like branded companies where it's almost like or potentially like a licensing part. If they don't like the admin part and the marketing, but they like actually doing it, maybe they can become part of a bigger practice where someone else does all the admin part. Yeah,
there's these DSOs, dental service organizations. These are like the big box dentists that kind of are scooping up a lot of practices. So we get on a monthly basis cards about, big organizations that are looking for people to sell, or I get random things in the mail. So once we're ready, we don't have a problem. We don't think we'll have a problem in terms of the asset. It's just getting to that point. And so what I'm trying to do personally is just make sure that everything is well organized, documented, more on the financials and the processes, but we'll focus on the processes moving forward. Yeah, so my goal is by next year to have a complete plan, identified partners, et cetera, so that if we need to execute in a short period after that, we can do that.
Good. Has everyone started working on their 2021 plans, strategies? October is usually a good time to start it.
No, it's December, sure.
Mine's about halfway through. I think what's cool is that when I was brainstorming, because I do a lot of stuff when I'm walking, is I said I want to have 24 speaking engagements next year. And within the next day, 5 of them came to fruition. So you got to just put stuff out in the universe.
That's right.
Anyone else? Naomi, you're having a lot of fun. I just love the background. That's the first person I've seen at a conference hall, convention center.
Yeah, our company does big events around our magazine.
Oh, makes sense.
And I miss them, right? So it's like, Melanie, may I ask you a quick question?
Mm-hmm.
So I've gone through 2 potential sales, one to a huge competitor here on Oahu, the 100-pound gorilla, and opened up my books. It took 3 years. And then they responded just saying that they weren't at capacity to take on the assets, which are 2 of the publications. And then I went through due diligence as well with another company, hired a consultant, and the individual didn't have the money to pay. So my question is, how do you know when you're going through this due diligence it's really a serious buy.
Maybe maybe there are questions to ask up front. How far into it did you find out that the person didn't have money for it? And did they have money initially and then they just changed their mind, or you could just tell that they never had money at all and they were just trying to get background information?
How would you ask those questions? What would be a good question or to ask the person?
How are you starting off with a background check in terms of finding out what information is available publicly? Dun & Bradstreet, it's like almost a credit resource for businesses. And not everyone has updated information, but that's one place to start. The Better Business Bureau, hoovers.com. And again, that's more for public businesses, but just kind of finding out how large the company is. And even just going onto their social pages, including LinkedIn, because usually it lists how many companies there are. So again, if it's a company of one and they're saying, I want to buy a $10 million business, they might be able to do that, but there's got to be other information that supports it too.
Thank you.
So yeah, Google Finance, Google Alerts. You can set an alert to find out information about particular businesses or industries. And again, maybe put it on put their name on it. Let's see, what else? I had a whole bunch of resources, in terms of links specifically for company research.
Could you provide those?
Hoovers, Google Finance, LinkedIn company pages, the social media pages, Better Business Bureau, Dun & Bradstreet.
And I have another really quick question. We've pivoted and put like all our resources into social media. Do people really pay attention with regards to social media in a sale of a business?
Oh, regarding the sale of a business? Mm-hmm. So Aguo says yes. Okay. So I'm gonna let him say that because I don't have experience with that.
You're saying that how much does a potential buyer look at the social media page?
Yeah, and do they see it as an asset?
I'm in the process of buying a business now, or looking at businesses, and one of the first things that I look at is the website and the social media. And if the website looks like it hasn't been updated since 1998, it's hard for me to imagine that your website is that bad and that you're doing X number of dollars in sales. And I haven't seen it yet where someone has this terrible website and they have great financials, or vice versa. If someone has a great website and they have terrible financials, I haven't seen that yet. And just knowing what I know about social media, I know how that can be leveraged into sales, because that's how people look for, in the case of the industry that I'm looking at, solar, how well that social is integrated with the website. And I know how people look at review sites and just that sales funnel. So yeah, I think it's really important.
I just want to add that since you guys are here staying later, maybe you can put your name and your contact information in the chat, and you can do it to the group or to me privately. So that way we can just figure out a way to stay connected and keep talking about this. So again, if you want to send it to either Naomi or to me, or put it in the group, but I'll save the chat. Go ahead, good conversation. So I just feel that in terms of if there's a strong social following, then it's just exponentially that much easier, because once you hit 10,000, it's much easier to get to 15, 20, and so on.
Right. It's kind of like shushing up your house, like staging it also from like being top of mind and, having engagement. But I just didn't know if people actually purchase the social media side of companies.
Yes, it can be an asset. Yeah. I thought you were talking more so about when they look at businesses and they're buying businesses, but think about your social feed as an asset. I know someone whose company has 300,000 Facebook followers. And that took 10 something years to get.
I just want to mention that there's 3 minutes left to join the main event room, and that's where the education session will be happening. So yeah, if you guys want to start heading there.
All right, so if you got your information in, if not, you have mine, and you can email me directly. I'm going to save this. So I will see you at the rest of the conference.